Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another In Conversation with myself, Paul Salahuddin Armstrong. My guest today is a wonderful French-American woman by the name of Marie-Catherine Bearden, an educator, intercultural consultant, and author whose life and career have spanned diplomacy, academia, international communities, and 4 continents. Having lived and worked amongst diverse communities and diplomatic circles, taught language and culture at leading American universities, and now helping people navigate the social and professional challenges of modern life, Marie-Catherine brings a unique perspective on civility, confidence, hospitality, and the art of human connection. At a time when people feel increasingly disconnected, despite being more connected than ever, we'll be exploring what it means to live graciously, communicate across differences, and build meaningful relationships in the 21st century. Marie-Catherine, welcome to In Conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for inviting me.
You're most welcome. Marie-Catherine, let's begin at the beginning. Tell us a little about your upbringing and the journey that eventually brought you to Austin, Texas.
Okay. I was born in a French family. I was born actually in Morocco, in North Africa. My dad was in the construction business, and so he took us all over Africa, from Congo to Nigeria. I studied in France and went back to Africa, and I needed to teach. This was just since I was very, very young. I always wanted to teach, and my first students or pupils were actually my brother and my sister. And they were
Nice.
very young, and I thought I knew about grammar. So I would teach them grammar, which was really a painful situation for them. So the teaching uh, 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 feeling was for me a very a goal in my life. And so I ended up teaching in Africa in French international schools, and during my period in Nigeria, Lagos, I met my future husband, who was actually a diplomat, uh, in quote, because he was actually a CIA officer, and at the time he was actually a CIA chief of station. So from there, we got married, and he continued taking me to discover the world, and we were posted in different places in the world. We continued in Africa. We were posted in Sudan, and then we went on. In the meantime, we were coming back to Washington, D.C. This was obviously between outposts. So I was very lucky to not only live in different parts of the world, but also travel around. And beside teaching, one of the things that I really, really like is culture. I think I should have been an anthropologist, because for me, culture is really what defines us. It's we can eat differently, we can speak differently, but there is a common denominator, which is really how we share things. And that is for me very important, because we all have a different approach to get together, but at at the end of the game, respect is what I think unites us. And so this was for me a study to see how people would communicate with each other. And so after a while, we went back to Washington, D.C., and Milt, my husband, wanted to retire, if I may say. and do his and go on with his life. And I decided to continue teaching, and that's when I taught at Georgetown University. I taught at George Washington University, and so on. And we were just too busy, so we thought about maybe finally retiring, and decided to go to come here to Austin, Texas, where he had studied and taught Mandarin. And when I left Georgetown University, the chair of the French department knew very well the chair of the French department here at the University of Texas at Austin, and he asked me to pay a visit and say hello from him whenever I had time, which I did. I went once we were all settled. I went to see the chair of the French department, just a lovely person, and he took me around the campus, and we walked around and so on and so forth. And at the end of it, he said, "I would like you to teach. I would like you to join our academy team." And I don't know if it was pride or not being able to say absolutely not. I actually accepted. Not only I accepted, but at the end of it, he said, "I'm going to give you a a full time." And and so I went on and taught, and I didn't want to teach anymore, but this was, as I said, I don't know what it was that I accepted.
Mm.
But then COVID came, and I thought I can't teach a culture, I can't teach a language online. So I decided to stop my academia period. But again, by teaching, I thought maybe I can do something else with what I know, which was, when I talked about culture, I talked about manners, respect, consideration, and I decided to open a business, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to help people who want to perhaps refine a little bit their edges, and that's how you found me.
It's amazing, journey that you've been on. I mean, and traveling all around the world to so many different places and seeing so many different cultures. I can't think of anyone else who'd be more qualified to guide people in this area. Were there any cultures or places that particularly influenced or impressed you?
It's a very difficult question to answer, and I have been asked that question many, many times.
Mm.
Every place, even when we were on vacation, every place was fascinating. There
Mm.
is always something different, something to discover, something fantastic, beautiful to see. Even when you don't understand the language, there is much more than just a language. And so I cannot, absolutely cannot say that there is a place in the world that I would prefer to another. It's, as I said earlier, I should have been an anthropologist, maybe social anthropologist, because I'm too curious about everything.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. With all this travel as well, and coming from such interesting upbringing, and then traveling all around the world, did you ever struggle with the question of where home was?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
With all this travel around the world, even like from a very early age, did you ever struggle with the question of where home was, or
Homeless?
home, where home
Oh,
is?
home.
Yeah.
No, perhaps because I
Apologies
have
about my accent. Sorry.
no, no, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. No, home is actually, I'm going to shock probably a lot of people, because I have met quite a few people who don't travel. are even afraid to go from a state to another here in the US. But for me, no, home is even in a hotel room where I'm going to enjoy to discover something. So no, what I would miss sometimes is perhaps to speak French more often. That is perhaps, or maybe smell the French coffee or a
I
pastry.
guess you don't get too many opportunities for that in the US, especially
No,
Texas.
although although you find incredible coffee and croissant, but yeah, perhaps that's the only thing really. And of course, my family, because I have family in Europe, so that too. But otherwise, no. Home is where I am right now, enjoying with my husband, with friends, with family. That's maybe that's a little eccentric, but that was actually a good question.
I don't think so. I don't think it's that eccentric. It's interesting response, and I think it's a very real response. You know, because it's it's about living in the moment, and you know, being like balanced where you are, being centered. This is I can understand this. I guess some people wouldn't, but I mean, I've traveled a bit myself, and there are other places in the world I could quite easily feel at home, um, because I know a lot of people there, and I feel comfortable there. I like the culture. I like how they do things. Um, so I can understand this, but I guess it depends on the person. You know, if someone hasn't traveled that much, then they might find it a bit eccentric.
Yes.
Um, And what first drew you to education? Because you said you always had, maybe not so much now, but earlier on you had this passion for education. Um,
Could you say that again?
what first drew you to education?
You mean to teach?
Yeah.
Um, as I said, very, very early I was very, very young when I wanted to teach. And actually, we were in Africa at that moment when I was teaching. My brother and my sister were younger than I. And he actually built with a board, a blackboard for me. I mean,
Mhm.
this was a passion. I don't know. I don't know if it's just my nature or because I was older. I am the oldest of all siblings, and I always I had to show perhaps example. I don't
Mm.
know. Um,
I
uh,
remember that from my own childhood. So
really?
yeah, I was the oldest as well. So I mean, I had to show an example, and I helped
Yeah.
my brother and sister with their homework. So yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
it's interesting even what I do now. There's a connection with teaching,
Yeah.
even though you know it's more like chaplaincy, but there's an educational element to it,
Yeah.
and I do like to help people, when
Yes.
they're on the journey, and it's when you see the results afterwards. I guess this is similar with yourself when you see the results, someone that you've helped along that journey, and you see them like flower and become what they are capable of becoming, or on the road to that.
Yeah.
Um, you just can't put a price on that. It's something very special.
That's so true. When I was teaching, when I was a lecturer here and there, um, it was for me a passion to see and to try to show interest in the culture, in history that I was teaching, and to see their eyes, their reaction, their questions. For me, was almost therapeutic. It's just something that satisfies me when I see when I share what I know, because this is first of all it, right? And of course, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so it has to be, by the time I present something, it has to be really good. So 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 when I see results. Then it's such a satisfaction because the message has gone through. I had 2 days ago, no, actually, it was yesterday, a young college student who was coming for a etiquette course. and I was explaining to her the history of knives, and it was so interesting to see her face, because she had no idea why we have knives this way today, and why there are some rules, some etiquettes to handle the knife, and to place the knife on the table, and so on and so forth. So you see,
Right.
little
I
things
never
like,
really thought about it myself. Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. I said I never really thought about that myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The story of the knife. I don't know if you have time for me to
Oh,
explain this.
please enlighten us, because
So the story of
also there's something with knives and forks when you put them on the plate, and we actually put them in different angles in the UK and in the US. A lot of people don't know this, of course. They just plonk it any anyway on the plate,
exactly,
but that's
exactly.
not how it's supposed to be done. I was always taught when I was a child, you put them like this on the plate, and in the US you put them like that, don't you, on a slight angle? But
Yes,
but I don't know where it came from. I just
yes, when
that's what
when you are finished,
that's what I
that's
was
right.
told. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And in my book, I try to explain a little bit. The story of the knife is that uh, people used to come, if you were a guest to my house, you would come with your dagger, you would come with a knife, because people used to eat with their
I'm
hands.
just thinking today, imagine if someone comes to your house with a knife. It's a scary thought. Sorry.
So in we had, because so much of etiquette today goes back to the French. I mean, French are a little bit eccentric, perhaps. I don't think so, but that's what people think. So I have heard that before. And so the knife, we had in the French history a cardinal that was very powerful by the name of Richelieu. And Richelieu was all ears to the King Louis the 15th. And he would do anything he wanted. He had carte blanche. And so he had a lot of entertaining. He always very lavish, very, very chic and all. And but he was tired of the guests coming with their dagger, or picking their teeth, threatening because the conversation was not interesting, and he thought this was not good. So he asked his cutlers, his butler, to make knives for every guest, for everybody. So people could not come anymore with their daggers, with their hunting daggers that were sharp and threatening. He thought this was not good. So what he did, not only he had knives for everybody, but also he wanted the knives to be sharp only on one side, and the tip not sharp. It had to be rounded. And so we have knives today at the table, you and I and everybody else, with that shape that actually Richelieu imposed.
Amazing.
So that was, and not only that, the sharp side of it has to be against the plate. So when you have the dining plate, you have the knife, the dining knife, and the sharp side, only one sharp side should be facing the plate, because the other side is threatening, or today is not very refined. So
So it means it's only for the food, not for anything else.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. So that's my little story about the knife.
amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea that's where that came from. It's one of those things you buy cutlery these days from the shop and you just use it and you never think where it
Yeah.
came from. Um,
Those little stories sometimes make a very good conversation around the table. Sometimes you have guests, and then
so I've got one more thing to thank the French for now.
that's right. If you want a lively dinner with French, just talk about food, just talk about wine, and talk about etiquette, and you're done. You have a fantastic ambience. This is a passion for the French people, beside politics, of course.
But you're actually right, because you highlight something there. Although we pronounce these things very differently now, and we've tailored it to our own way, but there's a lot of things that we Anglo-Americans, British and Americans, owe to the French. As about at least a third of our language is French words. The other third's Latin, and we also get the Latin words usually through France and through the French people, the Normans and the Plantagenets. The word etiquette that you use, that in itself is French. Protocol is French, isn't it? I mean, there's so many words that we use. Even diplomacy. There's so many words that we use. They're actually French. I've got a book by a French professor, and it's called Le langue anglais n'existait pas. C'est langue français mal prononcé, something like that. It's basically the English language doesn't exist. It's just mispronounced French. Now, I thought he was darn cheeky, so I bought the book and I was reading it, because I'm not very good with spoken French, but I can read it. And he put all the evidence there, and I was just like, okay, maybe he has a point. But I'm still wondering if I should write a riposte to the. Oh, that's a French word as well, isn't it? A riposte to the book, where I said that the French language doesn't exist; it's just mispronounced Latin.
But about etiquette, you're right. That's another story also. That's another very interesting story. The origin of the word etiquette in today's world it has an interesting beginning too, and it's again in the French court. Would you like me to?
Please carry on.
Okay, all right. So here we are now. We are in the court of Louis the 16th. Louis the 14th, which is the king's son, and we are in the 17th and 18th century. We all know he liked gold. He liked to call himself the Sun King and precious and so on and so forth. And then he had so he was in Versailles, the Palace of Versailles, and then he had a gardener who was in charge of very nice parterre, the lawns and so on. But he was surrounded, the king was surrounded by nobles who were living there. He wanted them to be there to really control them. But they were walking on those beautiful lawns, and they would come with horses and all that. And so the gardener was really unhappy, and he went to complain to the king. And the king said, do anything to make that stop. Just whatever you want, you do it. So the gardener came up with the idea of having big signs with "Do not walk on this lawn," or "Do not pick flowers," and somehow, for some reason, it worked. So
Wow.
they obeyed. So he went to the king and he said, here is what I did, and it's working. So boom, the king thought that was absolutely great, because he thought that he could use that. Those are called etiquette in French. Those signs are called etiquette.
Oh,
Yes. So they're tags, right?
yeah.
So he had an etiquette on his lawn, and the king thought, I'm going to use that. So he used these etiquettes, these signs that at the beginning were just oral. He was actually ordering his court to do this or not do that. For example, one of the things, he was irritated by seeing the nobles coming into his apartments without knocking or anything. So he thought that if they wanted to see the king, if they wanted to go inside where he was, they had to grow a nail on the pinky. Is that what you call it? Pinky?
Little finger, yeah. Some people call it
Finger?
pinky. Yeah.
Okay. And they had to grow a nail, and then scratch at the door to get in. So this was a part of the rules, actually, etiquette. And he had all kinds of rules like that. If the nobles wanted to see him being shaved or being dressed, then there was a very protocolar moment to do that. And so that's how he used etiquette, the all these rules to control the nobles a little more. So this is the origin
Amazing.
of etiquette. And at the beginning, as I said, it was oral, and then he started having them write down, and then they had to follow the rules. So today, those rules are, there are so many rules of etiquette, but the origin comes from Louis XIV.
And of course, I mean, if it come from the royal court, then that would also be connected to protocol, wouldn't it? Which is a more formal kind of etiquette. And then you have the etiquette that most people sort of follow. That, yeah. Again, they both come from the French.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned the French court as well. But I think, after William the Conqueror, the English court itself was basically a French court right the way through until maybe Henry VIII's time. And then it sort of started to develop its own unique identity. But even then, like all of the nobles, they spoke French. This is why even like the words that we use, people often ask, even I did, especially as a kid, how come, you know, when we buy beef from the shop, we buy beef, we eat beef, but we have cows. We don't have, and cattle. We don't have beef, and even like the meat, you have sheep, but then it becomes mutton when it's become meat. And of course, what it turned out is that the words that we use are French words for the food, because when it was farmed in the field, the English people were doing that. But the new elites that was basically mostly French, or at least speaking French, they used a French word to refer to the same animal.
Right.
So, yeah, and so a lot of foods, even if they're English, like they have a French derived. I mean, it's like beef. Is it boeuf in French? It's very close. It's actually derived from the French word, whereas the words of the animals when they were in the fields, they're the English words. They come from the Germanic roots.
Yeah. Right, 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 right. Milt, my husband, just wrote an article that I think he published this past weekend
Mm,
about the pirate flag that is so much into American politics today. There is
yeah,
one candidate who has a tattoo that has actually a pirate flag, which is called Jolly Roger.
yeah,
And he did some research, and beside the fact that today most people think it's related to the Nazi period in Europe, actually that flag and that expression goes back 300 years earlier. They were French pirates in the Caribbean who had a, pirate flags. One was a black one, which was kind of friendly, but if they showed to a ship coming a red flag, that meant a threat, that meant a danger. And it was called
right.
in French joli rouge, which is beautiful red,
Um,
right? You know that. And the
mm,
English later on uh, uh, kind of distorted the rouge with rouge and became Roger. So it's Jolly
yeah,
Roger, which is the name of the flag today. Even there is a ship, an American ship called Jolly, who carrying the flag Jolly Roger.
mm,
So all that to say that from Jolly Rouge you have Jolly Roger, and it was a distortion of the word. So you're right, from beef to buff, well, it's not that far.
Yeah.
So you could,
Of course, that's a black flag, you know, that with the skull and crossbones on it. But
yeah,
the is that where we get the term red flag from? You
I'm
know,
sorry.
like, is that where we get the term red flag from? So, you know, like if you see something wrong, it's a red flag.
Danger, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know, Paul. Maybe it's a good question. Perhaps it comes from that time. I don't know. But I
It could
thought,
well do. It's because it sounds, I mean, literally, that's what it meant. If you saw the ship put the red flag up,
yeah,
you're in danger. You want to either
yeah,
get out
right.
of there or, you know, you have to fight back. Yeah.
There we go. Then we have to do research. We have to
Yeah.
communicate. Communicate.
It's,
Perhaps someone will know.
I actually watch something called Rob's Words occasionally. It's another podcast. And the guy in that, he delves into so many of these things. You wouldn't believe where they come from. And it's like so
Yeah,
many things that we just commonly use now, phrases and words, and they date back centuries and sometimes to other countries. And, you know, we use them without thinking. And
yeah.
sometimes they mean things which are quite different from what we expect.
You're
But
right.
yeah,
You're absolutely right. You know, one of the things that you were talking earlier, that one third of the English language is actually French. It's true.
yeah.
Um, and when I had, the 101 classes, for example, who knew no French at all, some of them would have had studied French in high school, but the majority would not know anything. So, so I would say, who has never studied French? Okay, so the majority of the class. And I said, you know what? You already know some French. So of course, that was a shock, right? And so I would say, give me all the words in English ending by ION.
Oh yeah.
So, so they would just give me solution. So I would write the blackboard or whiteboard, depending on the classroom, solution, and I would say it in French, solution.
Mm,
Uh, and on and on. I said, now give me all words ending with ENT. And so, of course,
mm,
monument, comment, and so on and so forth, and government, And so I would write it down and I would say gouvernement, comment, and so on. They were totally shocked, and it's true. There is so much in the English language that we don't even think about that actually is
mm.
French. So yeah, it's fascinating. Isn't it fascinating? I mean,
It
we could just
fascinates
go
me
on and on.
because
Yeah, yeah,
English is often thought of as a Germanic language, but how can it be a Germanic language when 60% of our language has Latin roots? Both the Latin words, that's one third of it, and the other third that comes from French. You know, it's actually much more of a Romance language in terms of its overall vocabulary. But I think it's just like, you know, like basic words like to and it and water and things. These words are Germanic. But, you know, anything that's a bit longer, you know, as you start to see that Latin and French vocabulary come in. And without it, our language would be very poor. You know, something that dawned on me when I was visiting the Netherlands, and no disrespect to the Dutch, they're lovely people, but something that dawned on me was when I was at Leiden University and I saw a sign that said in English observatory, and then it said in Dutch Steurwatchen. I don't know if I've got the pronunciation right, but it looked like Steurwatchen, you know, like basically Star Watcher. So if we didn't have French vocabulary in English, we wouldn't have an observatory, we would have a star watcher. It sounds like child's English, doesn't it? And it's like the word royal itself is French, royal. And, you know, so we have this Royal Observatory at Greenwich, which sounds, oh, very prestigious, you know, the Royal Observatory. And it
yes.
dawned on me, it wouldn't be the Royal Observatory, it would be the, oh, is it Kungen Sturwitchen or something? Like, well, thank goodness for the French.
Yeah.
Otherwise, our language would be very poor. Uh, People don't realize it. I mean, I love the way we use it as English people.
Yeah.
I like our pronunciation, but it's still without that vocabulary. And even the word vocabulary itself is French. We would be really stuck.
Yes,
Um,
yes, 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 yeah. And so, did you study French when you were at school or in
I
college?
had to. It was brought in when I was at school. Like a couple of decades before that, they used to teach Latin.
Okay.
But that was phased out of like public, like we call them what is it, comprehensive schools here in the West, the ones that are run by the state. It was phased out of them. Public schools here doesn't mean like the state schools. It means the private schools that are very prestigious. Don't ask me why; it doesn't make sense, but that's the language we use. And so they still, I think, even now, like schools like Eton probably study Latin. Um, but it's like the comprehensive schools, they'd phased it out in favor of French. In all honesty, I wish they taught me Latin at school because it would have really helped. I ended up studying it myself in my own time and found it very useful because you start to connect the dots. And I'm now studying Italian and I can understand Italian because obviously I have some knowledge of French and also Latin, and it opens it up. um, Latin is really, I think, crucial to understanding English,
You're right.
but a lot of people don't realize. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
surprising a lot of people don't have a deep comprehension of the language when
yes.
they're not taught the tools to be able to understand it.
Mhm. But that was very courageous of you to study it by yourself because it's not easy. I mean, no language is easy anyway. I mean, talk about English. I mean, it's a lingua franca of the world today, but it's not an easy language to study. I mean, who am I to say a language is harder than another? I would never
No,
say
I think that's one of the things that struck me when I was looking at other languages. I mean, it's like Indonesian is by far easier than English. It's like the way once you learn the pronunciation system, that's it. It pretty much works for every word. Once you learn like certain words for certain things, it pretty much those roots pass through everything. English, because it's a hybrid language, it's got like these old Germanic words that we use. It's got the French and Latin roots that we brought in, that we built words from, some of which are actually combinations of French or Latin and German roots that we've combined to make words. I mean, it must be utterly confusing for people who were not brought up with the English language. And yet, amazingly, a lot of people around the world do manage to learn English very fluently, sometimes more
imagine.
fluently than the average English or American person.
You're right. I mean, imagine OUJGH. It has so many different pronunciation. I mean,
Yeah.
you take through, you take though, you take, it's the same ending, but somehow you have a different pronunciation. It's
There's
so,
no uniform pronunciation
no,
system
not at
for
all,
our language
not at all.
because there's the spellings of the words. It's like a lot of French words that are in English are almost 100% or very close to the actual spelling that they are in French.
Mhm.
They're often very close. And yet the actual pronunciation is different, for the different words. So we've got those words, and then we've got words from other roots that we pronounce that look similar, but then they're pronounced differently because they belong to like a different language family, even though they're part of English.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
And that's
mhm.
where it comes from, and it is really quite baffling when you think about it. I mean, of course, we don't because it's our first language. So we've always known it like that. It baffles us when we're children, but then we just learn and then we just accept it. But when you actually analyze it, it is a really quirky language.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And that's why it's important to learn another language, to learn another culture, because you really realize what is your language, what is your culture, because otherwise, if you're not exposed to that, you live, there is something missing. You don't understand. You don't have a depth of your own knowledge and your own culture. I mean, everything you said. I wonder how many people, without insulting anybody, would just think in those terms. And it's because you have the curiosity, or you have had the time to analyze something else that has a connection to your own language, to your own culture. And that is back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, um, I don't know what we could do without comparing other cultures, other languages. It's so necessary, I think, you
I think
know?
it's one of those things that also reveals that how culturally interlinked we really are.
Mhm.
Once you start looking into these things, you can't just like look at your own culture or your own country as being totally like separate from everybody else and we're the best. This kind of crazy mentality that some people have, that it's like I love my country, don't get me wrong, I'm proud of what we've achieved as a country, but at the same time, not in the sense that it's exclusive, that I'm like putting anybody else down. You can't, because once you actually understand this, it opens up a whole different way of seeing things.
Yeah.
But you're right, a lot of people, they won't see that because they've never been exposed to it and they've never thought about it, and they don't care in many cases, which is really sad. And
Yeah.
something you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation is the fact that it's all about respect. Respect is the thing that creates harmony between people, that creates good relationships between people. And when we lose that respect, everything goes downhill from there. Because I mean, how can you be with people that have no respect, and that you don't know what they're going to do? Maybe they'll come to your door with a sharp knife. It's you're
Yeah,
gonna have to
absolutely.
thank that French guy now, honestly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, right. Are we becoming less civil now, do you think?
Mm. Um, that is a difficult question. How about if I say that we are more casual, perhaps?
Mm,
It's more of a relaxed uh, uh, culture we all are in now. I mean, this is not just one country. We all that kind of formality is gone, if I may say, unless you are in a special situation, like in the diplomatic world, we all have protocols, of course, but in general, the any society, it's much more relaxed, yes, much more casual.
mm,
And with that, you can probably dig in more, and maybe would say, I dare not say, but maybe a little coarse sometimes. And yes, and that is part of what we are living now, and so some people realize that maybe it's too much, and we don't have enough limits, and that's why we have rules to learn. Etiquette. It looks like a snobbish word, old-fashioned word, but I think there are rules there uh, that we have to refresh, perhaps. And even if the word is old-fashioned, it doesn't mean there has to be formal. It means, again, consideration. It means um, respect. Again, I think I would probably use that um, all the time. It's actually to put other people at ease, but by respecting them. You see, you and I are talking, and we know we have a time to talk,
Yeah.
and that by itself is it's something that maybe some people don't even think about, consider. I mean, this is just the dialogue we have is etiquette, if I may say.
True.
It's respect. And sometimes that is not respected anymore. And so, yeah, I
Mm.
think there is a little bit of too much relaxation in all cultures, I would say, not just one in particular. Yeah, yeah.
For that, I
It-
thank my parents.
Sorry?
For that, I thank my parents. They brought me up to have respect for everyone,
Yes.
to listen more, you know, listen before speaking.
Yeah,
When I was a
me
child, I
too.
just want to blah, 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 blah.
Yes, that's right.
Listen
Yes.
first. Mm.
You know, Milt and I were in a restaurant 2 or 3 days ago, and here comes a young family with two children, two boys. And Paul, it was so disturbing. I mean, the parents did not have a clue of what was decency. I mean, the children speaking loud, screaming, getting up on the chair, and we were in a restaurant. I mean, that's a public place.
Mm.
You see what I mean? The consideration is what to some people.
Mm.
Decency, respect for the rest of us. And you and I were lucky to have parents who taught us that from a very, very young age. You don't have you don't have to have children walking and teaching them. As soon as they scream, when it's not allowed, they understand. They understand they should not do that. And this is the role of the parents to to teach that. So yeah,
It's true.
yeah,
And unfortunately, I think a lot of that is lost these days, and
yes,
people are outsourcing their parenting. And as a parent myself, it's something I try not to do, you know, because it's I understand the necessity of leading by example for my own children.
yeah, 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 yeah. Mm,
You wrote a book, The Modern Host and the Refined Guest, The
yes,
Art of Being at Ease in the 21st Century. Uh,
yes.
I was going to ask you what inspired you to write this, but I don't need to ask that now, of course, because I can see what inspired you to write it. But would you like to say a little bit about your book?
Well, Paul, I wrote that book because when I love to entertain, and I married someone who likes that too, and people would have pleasure, and then would just, you could really see that there was a comfort and being at ease and leaving, perhaps happier than when they came in. But
Mm.
at the same time, I had people and friends who would tell me that they were intimidated by uh, about the rules, and they would not know where to start and why entertaining can work and why it doesn't work for them. And so I thought that I probably had to write something that would actually help them to not be afraid of entertaining. It's such a gratifying thing to be able to have friends or acquaintances who are, dialogue well and feel comfortable. And so my book is about not only hosting well, and I give the rules. The rules are, it's a strong word, but I give tips, I give
Yeah.
advice. Some I call them sometimes golden rules to organize themselves And the same thing with guests. Guests feel sometimes awkward. They love to be invited,
Mm.
but they also they are not really sure how to handle themselves. And so throughout the book, I give advice to guests also, from uh, how to accept an invitation, when to accept an invitation, or when to refuse an invitation, to what to bring if they want to bring something, because there are things that you don't bring, and so on and so forth. So my book is it's really to make people at ease, and that's why my subtitle is the art of being at ease in the 21st century. I think, and it's really common sense, but maybe people are overwhelmed by getting ready and don't know how to start. And so I
Common
go,
sense is one of those misnamed things, though, isn't it?
yeah, yes,
Maybe you and I have common sense, but it's not everybody has common sense. It's
yeah.
not that
And
common.
once,
Yeah.
and once they know, they just say, yeah, it's common sense, you know?
Mm.
It's like if you want a very good party, one of the most important things, and perhaps even the most important thing is to choose your guests. The guest list is a killer. You cannot invite just because you owe an invitation, which is very
Mm.
nice. You have to invite to be sure that these people they don't need to have anything in common. On the contrary, because we are all unique.
Mm.
We all like to listen, but we like to be listened to. And so, if you want to have a very nice uh, 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 party, just choose your guests. As I said in the book, I would try my best not to invite two doctors, two architects, two
Mm.
nurses, because either they are going to just talk about that or they're going to hate it. And so a
Mm.
variety of people is, even if it's a small group,
Mm.
it's really the key to have. Even the food is very important. I spend a lot of time in my book talking about the planning the menu, uh, but the most important is the guests, and the second most important beside the menu is to be prepared, to prepare
Mm.
yourself, to plan everything. And when the guests arrive, you are totally relaxed. And that people feel it. As soon as you go into a house where the host and the hostess are smiling, relaxed, and just having, you can tell in the face when people are stressed or not. And you may have been to places where you feel people sweating, a little nervous, or leaving you too long in the living room or wherever they decide to have you. And that is a no, and it's easy. It's just fun, you see. So that's really in essence what my book is about, is to create it's a guide that helps people to feel confident, um, and uh, and make uh, people guest at ease.
Excellent. I'm sure that's very much needed in today's world.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
would you like to share some final thoughts on like wisdom for modern life, like in our present times? What sort of final thought would you like to share for today?
Oh, I think I think all our conversation has been again about respect.
Mm.
I think if we have patience, respect can be even from driving. Um, when we moved in 11 years ago, when we moved into Austin, it was a small capital of Texas, but small.
Mm.
And it was shocking to me how courteous people were. uh, and in driving, in everywhere, and the yes mom, and that really did something to me. And then now we have an influx of businesses coming into Austin, and it's a very crowded place. And you can really see that people honk more often, they are more aggressive driving and so on. So I think although it could be a stressful life if you live in a city, but consideration, graciousness in everyday life, even to your spouse, to your children, to your neighbors. I think that's probably what we all should think about. It's perhaps a little too philosophical. I don't know. I mean, we could expand that to it, but yeah, patience and respect, I think.
I agree. I've seen that as well, a lot of our cities now, and how people aren't so courteous, and we need more of that.
Yeah.
Well, Marie-Catherine, thank you so much for joining me today. And I can see there's other things we could have discussed, so maybe I'll ask you to come back to join me again for another podcast in a few months' time or something.
Thank
Uh,
you very much.
uh, but yeah, so much. Thank you so much. These conversations reminded me that civility and respect are not weakness. Hospitality is not merely a social formality, and confidence is not about drawing attention to ourselves. At their best, these qualities are ways of honoring the dignity of others and creating the conditions which people can flourish together. So thank you for sharing your experiences and your insights. And thank you for everyone who has joined us for this episode of Conversation. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share it with those who may find it valuable or useful. Until next time, please take good care of yourselves. And I wish you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. God bless. Thank you.